I take theory in my direction and put it into action so that it looks a particular way with the lights, so that you can see it in the costume formations, so that you can see it in the formation of the set design. And I want students to be able to do that same thing on a smaller scale.
Would you say that your role as an educator has impacted like your creative endeavors and your role as a creator? Has there kind of been an effect there?
Would I say that my role as an educator
Yeah.
has impacted my work as a creative?
Yeah, like, so, you have all these, like, creative endeavors that you do, but you teach people these things, So I was wondering if there's ever any way that that's kind of informed your creative process or changed it in any way.
I see myself as an interdisciplinary scholar artist, and I'm always in conversation with the different modes. I think we need theory. Theory helps us make sense of things. It's a way to organize things and think through it. And I like being able to lean into theory and to apply it in a context. So I don't really know how to separate the two modes for myself. And I think with each class I teach, I'm always operating in the middle space of both of those areas and asking my students to do the same.
Would you say that kind of differentiates you from maybe other people in academia? Would you say that kind of is something like unique to like a creative educator or you specifically?
I don't know. I think we can take these skills of creativity and apply them across the disciplines. I hate to think that it's just the artists, right? The directors, the dancers, the choreographers, the painters that find themselves walking in the space between two worlds. I think creativity can be applied in many different disciplines, and and in fact I know scholars, I have colleagues who are looking for creative ways to get students thinking outside of the box about very ordinary things.
Interesting. One thing I've always wondered is kind of a student who does work on like plays and stuff. When you collaborate with students on a project, so it's less like professor-student, and now you're suddenly like a collaborator with them, how does that change the dynamic both in and out of classes if you ever have them again and then during it as well?
So I love it when I have the opportunity to, before we even begin the rehearsal process, if I've taught a course, and I've had this happen on more than one occasion where I've taught a course in a play that I know is going to end up in the season in some way, then becomes the laboratory where we get to take what we've all wrestled with in the classroom, and now the classroom is moved to the stage. The dynamic doesn't change. I mean, they still see me as their professor, and I still see them as, my student. But just as I am in the classroom, open to the gifts that they're going to bring in the way that they think about the material, I think I expect it even more when we move into the rehearsal room, right? Because I only have you in class for maybe an hour and a half max, unless it's a 3-hour course. In rehearsal, I'm going to have you for a few hours. And in that time, the expectation is that you've taken what we've discussed in class, that you've taken what we discussed in previous rehearsals, and you've worked through that for yourself. And so you're coming back to this space with the rest of the ensemble to show us, to put in action, together, this thing that we're all collaborating on. I don't see it any different than, a scholar, a professor, and a student sitting down to co-publish an essay, right? I write, you write, we bring our writing together. This is where they don't marry. Or I didn't think about that. We need to elaborate on this more. It's the exact same thing in the rehearsal room. There's always this give and take, and it should be this give and take in the process of recreating life, so that those who come to witness and experience what we've created, walk away with something that they didn't have before, that helps them navigate life outside of the theater.
This is going to be kind of a big, broad question, so if you need to give it a... But, all right. So in just the general institution of academia, yeah, there we go. Are there places where you think we could stand to think a bit more creatively about how we conduct ourselves and we conduct these dynamics and relationships?
I wish I had had this question ahead of time.
I just thought of
so
it
that
off the
I
cuff.
can pinpoint these areas, but I need to think about this one. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
of course there are. The question is, where?
Yeah, that one just popped in my head, and I was like, all right, I'm going to try this, but this might be a little much just off the cuff.
Yeah, I gotta think about that one. But that's a good question.
Yeah.
Ask that question again.
So in the general institution of academia, are there any areas kind of within this institution where you think we could afford to be a bit more creative in how we conduct things?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I just had a discussion with one of my mentees this morning, and we were talking about in-person classes versus virtual classes, and they now find themselves in a position where they have the option to attend class on a given day virtually or in person, right? And so I said to myself, I think that requires certainly more effort and thinking creatively on the part of the professor, for sure, right? Because at any given moment, you may not know what the in-person dynamic is going to be, and that could affect the construction of a particular assignment or the outcomes for a particular day. But how convenient would it be to have the choice to press a button and be present and active and engaged from wherever you are? Or, yes, I'm actually going to show up in person and be present and active and engaged. But the level of accessibility and choice between having that kind of hybrid option at will, I thought was absolutely beautiful. And if I knew that as an instructor going into the semester that at any point my students, had that option, I would certainly prepare differently. But I like that. I love it. That is one of the things that I have come to appreciate most about the dual pandemics that we found ourselves living through these past almost 2 years, is that we have been able to build community through different technological formations in ways that we had not operated in previously. And I think we've been able to capture new audiences, certainly, from a performative aspect, but that we have actually empowered our students in ways that not all of them, I think, appreciate just yet, but as they age, like I'm aging, I'm finding that I love it. Being able to just be present,
right,
from the comfort, of a space that I've created for my family, or even if I'm traveling, right? I'm still a very active scholar artist, and I'm traveling to promote my work and attending different conferences. We were always doing that as faculty, but this might even allow me to be present in both spaces, without where there's no time conflict.
Just makes everything so much more accessible.
It makes everything so much more accessible. I even found, I don't know if this is, I know that this is a good thing, but it might not be, right, depending on the context. I even found that I became more productive.
Interesting.
In the midst of these dual pandemics. In fact, my productivity went up 9%. I actually did the data.
Wow. Okay.
It went up by 9%.
Wow. I don't know if this is necessarily, how did you crunch the data? Were you like measuring like word count, or like how did you?
Well, literally, I'm looking at, the date that something was published or the date that something had happened. And so it's easy to just, count between, periods, how many activities were accomplished between this date and this date versus this date and this date.
Wow.
And what increased, this is wild, but what increased when I became an administrator, right, there was a 142% increase, right, in work accomplished as an administrator, faculty, scholar, artist. It went up by 9% from there during the pandemic.
It's one term you've used a couple times. So do you use scholar artist as like one term?
Yes.
What is
There's
that?
a hyphenation.
Hyphenation.
Between the two words, but, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I want always to keep in the forefront of my work in the academy the notion that I'm also a scholar, because sometimes I do think there is a little bit of devaluing of the work of creatives whose output doesn't always fall into the traditional modes of word count, book chapter,
Right.
monograph. But that we spend the same amount of hours, sometimes, in a shorter period, right? That it may take you to write a scholarly essay. We spend upwards of 100 hours or so in rehearsal in a very short period outside of our regular scheduled, 2 course load, unless you have more classes to teach because you are, in a different faculty track. And so sometimes, like I said, I do think that there's a little bit of devaluation of the kind of output that we have. And again, because so much of my work leans into or begins with theory, I can't separate the two.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now this question, I feel like we're wrapping up. This is either going to be the hardest or the easiest question I'm giving you. Just of your projects, this might be asking you to pick like a favorite child, but like what has been like the most like exciting? What has meant the most to you?
Oh, really? Oh, no, this is an easy one.
Okay.
Because my friend Roy is standing right here next to me.
Okay.
My favorite baby by far has been Dance of the Orcas.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Dance of the Orcas in its live formation had a world premiere in November of 2019 at the Association for the Study of the African Worldwide Diaspora Conference here at William and Mary. And in the following year, when we all found ourselves in, again, the pandemic and trying to figure out how do we maintain our work but expand in new ways because of, the need to use more technology than perhaps we had done so previously, I decided to move from potential into manifestation and to think seriously about how to work in a mode that I had not engaged previously. And with the assistance of the Studio for Teaching and Learning Innovation, Roy and his genius, and bringing in the external team, K. Michael O'Neill, and other colleagues, we were able to take what was a live stage play, as challenging and daunting as we all knew that project was going to be, and distill it to a beautiful 32 minutes and 17 seconds, I think.
Wow.
Where we, got the essence of the work captured in a way that makes what we did exist for a much longer time and become much more accessible, and has inspired me to do more film.
Okay.
I'm working with Cadence Theater Company on Sightlines Black Lives Matter, where we commission artists of the global majority to write short films about site-specific spots in Richmond. We commissioned 5 writers. We have filmed 2, and we're working on our 3rd in a couple of weeks. All of the films will premiere in the spring, March 4th through the 2nd, at the Virginia Repertory Theater's Theater Gym. And with Cadence's assistance, I will be taking an online film course to start at the beginning of December. So this pivot has been amazing, and it's allowing me to expand as a scholar artist. It's allowing students that I've worked with dramaturgically to work now, not using those dramaturgical skills in theater, but to now apply them in film. Mm-hmm. So we're transcending boundaries. And we are creating opportunities for, artists who have found themselves, marginalized for one reason or another. And we're giving them opportunities to raise their profile and to use their voice.